You're here. I just want to thank all my viewers. This channel would not be possible without you, the viewer, and your comments and your interactive information. Just a quick shout out to thank everybody. Now, today's topic is going to be on the Constitution, the First Amendment to the Constitution. Now, I've actually done this a couple of times, and I wound up scrapping what I did because the right to free speech is a topic that has been debated, and it excuse me, I'm going to put a little background music on because it helps me concentrate. I don't know why, but it can't have words, because if it has words then I can't concentrate. I'll just turn it down so that it doesn't interfere with your hearing me. But, okay, so this is my iTunes of stuff that's like background music. Okay, so, um, the right to free speech is very complicated, and it's got a long history. But if you'll remember, the Constitution of the United States started, free speech was added later on an amendment. And the law does change. It's not always the same. Now, there's been a lot of divisiveness in the United States lately, and some people have been getting really brass. They wouldn't have otherwise done this. For example, here's a Confederate flag, right? Now, when our nation was divided, I'm in the United States, there was a bloody affair, a civil war that was just horrible, and it was between the North and the South. And here, let me turn this down. And the Civil War was based on the South wanting to cede or separate from the North. They put a president up. The president's name was Jefferson Davis. And they wanted to keep slavery. And for a lot of African Americans and Northerners, they see the South as being anarchists, rebels, and actually it's even called the rebel flag. And they also consider it treasonous because, see, when the laws change, people sometimes get upset, and so they tried to form their own government. And here's a flag, a Confederate flag. So the sons of the Confederate veterans. Okay, so there were people that died for their value to have their way of life where they paid for people and had them as slaves and housed them. And some were treated really terribly, and some were not treated as bad, but most were treated horribly. And they were just using them for labor. Well, there's a lot of ancestors that know and hold the values of they basically say, hey, this is a First Amendment right. We have a right to this. Well, it's free speech. It's holding up a symbol. It's free speech. Well, um, you know, that's right. What does free speech mean? Well, free speech includes a lot of rights. And here's some cases. I'm going to put this link in the box below. But you don't have to speak. You have the right to not salute the flag. However, in the past, there were people that wanted to salute, that were forced to salute the flag. Jehovah's Witnesses, I believe, is one of the religions, freedom of religion, that's freedom of speech. They didn't believe in saluting the flag. Well, so there's a bunch of cases here listed, but there's interpretations of the law that are decided over the years on what the free speech is and what free speech is not. And so there's limits on free speech. For example, inciting actions that cause harm, that's shouting fire in a crowded theater, or making or distributing obscene materials, that's like stuff under against the law. Um, Now, for some reason, in 1968, it was decided that it was illegal to burn draft cards in an anti-war protest. So another thing, a limit to your free speech, was decided in 1988 to permit students to print articles in school newspapers over the objections of the school administration. So anyway, it's been argued in the courts, and actually, you have a right to remain silent. That's in another part of the Constitution. There are limits. Now, in Stafford, where this Confederate flag was, I just showed you this link to this. They have been saying, they have the right to, that's in Virginia, they have the right to fly that flag. It's on private property. Now, if it was on public property, that might be different, but it's not. So this person has this. Now, this is not any of these sources that I'm going to. They might be more right-wing or they might be more left-wing. I think the Federalist is more right-wing, but I'm not totally positive. They have this article on free speech, and they're saying that these after-school Satan clubs, they have this. I guess this is the symbol of the devil. They're saying, oh, these Satan clubs are just being facetious. In other words, they don't really believe anyway, they're trying to, they're putting their own spin on it. Now, I'm just sharing the article with you. It doesn't mean I necessarily believe what they're saying. I'm just saying that the idea of free speech is arguable. There are limits on free speech. They are implied or inferred, and the court has had a say on how they're implied and inferred. And where is this? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go look at some of these prior sites that I just I went to, so that okay, so we already did this. Let's see, exceptions to the free speech, copy. Now you can look at this more in depth on your own. Let's just go to Safari. If you have, I'm just going to use DuckDuckGo. Stop it. Damn it. Okay, wait. Just do a new window. Okay, so I'm going to take you here. I'm going to show you this really good article. It's going to be in the link below the video. So here's a quick nutshell. Obscenities not allowed. Lies are not allowed. Remember Martha Stewart? She went to jail for lying about insider trading. Violence. You can't incite violence. Here's a case. Student speech is not protected. Students have limited rights. Now, I think they're talking mostly about underage students, but I'm not positive. You can look all this up. I will put the link below. Now, you don't have the right to say whatever you want in someone else's home or other private setting. Now, and an employee can fire you if you've got a bumper sticker on your car that says Obama and they don't like Obama. Okay? So there's a thing called private speech and public speech. Yes, there's free speech, but when you're in a private property or a certain setting, you're going to have limits on your speech that might not be, they can be a little different. So you can't just say everything's free speech. There's always that loophole. There's always um, that exception to the rule. And so, even if you want to go protest, a lot of jurisdictions have limits, and you have to get a permit. You can't just go out and protest. So look, can the government, the ACLU, obviously, they've got a point on this. I'm not going to read the article, but the government does require you to have a permit in some areas of the country, and they can revoke the permit if you do not follow their rules, or if you're starting to incite violence or something. They want to keep the peace. So freedom of speech is a limited right, and it's been in the news a lot lately. And you know there's a lot of people that take offense when people speak or express views that aren't the same as theirs, and that's the way life is. But I wanted you to look at this Oyas because I just love Oyas. That's one of my favorites. And Oyas is basically, wait, that's word. Oyas is, let's just close this out. You'll see that article. You'll have the link to that. Oyas is the Supreme Court, and I wanted to let you know about a case in 1969. It was argued, the oral arguments here. You can click on it and hear it. I gotta turn this up. And if I turn this up, I'm gonna have to turn this down. Let's just stop it for a minute. Okay, so you can hear the whole thing. Here we go.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Chief Justice, members of the court. We have before us a case arising in the state of Ohio under a conviction under Ohio's Criminal Syndicalism Act. We have indeed before us something of a rarity. It is, as far as I know, the third case ever tried under Ohio's Criminal Syndicalism Act, and the first to ever reach an appellate level. There was earlier in Ohio, under peculiar proceedings, in which a prosecutor could bring a proceeding before the Supreme Court on appeal for a question of law only. A proceeding in which
okay, well, anyhow, you can get the transcripts and everything from here. But basically, this is the oral argument in the case. And the facts of the case were a Ku Klux Klan case. Now, what happened is they had a rally, and it's free speech, right? Well, in Ohio state, they had a law in the books that made it illegal or criminal to have terrorism and all this other crud. So they had a question before the court, is Ohio's syndicalism law prohibiting public speech that advocates various illegal activities violating Brandenburg's right to free speech as protected by the First Amendment? And what was the opinion? The court's opinion held that Ohio violated Brandenburg's right to free speech. The court used a two-pronged test to evaluate speech acts. And so now, with these cases, there's a history, and sometimes the case gets overturned, and it's no longer relevant. In other words, this is a limit on free speech that was heard in the 1960s, and it might be different now. So what do we learn from this? We learn that the right to free speech is arguable, and that there are exceptions, and that if you have a state case where you're put in jail or arrested for free speech, which you think that's protected, all right, let's look up pure curium. I forgot what that meant. And I'm supposed to be the law student. I've been out of law school for a while. A decision or opinion issued by the appellate court by multiple judges, at least a majority of the court. Okay. So, there you have it. Let's see if we could find the topic of free speech. I will tell you the reason I'm doing this today is I'm uploading a video. It's taking a long time and it's snowing outside, so I'm stuck inside. Otherwise, I might not even be doing this today. You know, sometimes you just have to go with the flow or the weather. I thought I'd put this back on. It's getting close to dinner time here. I can't believe how the time's been flying. Let's see if I can find something on free speech in Oyas. But like I said, I do love Oyas. Why isn't this going? Okay, so there's a bunch of cases you can look up. And then I'll have the question of the case. This is a 2000 case. Now it talks about diversity. Diversity is like more than one state. Usually in civil cases. Religious-oriented films at school. Now remember that a religion, there's a right to free religion, right? But our country in the United States is mostly Christian, and it was primarily founded by Protestants that were escaping persecution in other countries. Like in the North, like Massachusetts, there was the Mayflower came over, and they wanted to have their Puritans there, but they had witch hunts prior to in so the first I don't know, this is a blog spot, but the country was founded in the by mostly Protestant Christians in the beginning, and then the Catholics came in later. But there weren't that many Catholics here, but there were Catholic colonists as well. But freedom of religion is a subject where a lot of people think, well, your religion is evil, or your view is wrong and mine is right. But freedom of speech for Wiccans. Let's do Wiccan. I think Wiccans consider themselves good witches. But since it's a Christian culture, well, it was, but it's really a mix. I'm trying to find religious tolerance. Amendment to the Constitution. Let's look at this. Anyway, maybe I should get back to what my topic outline is. The Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, issues, cases, Bill of Rights. I don't want to go on too long, but the First Amendment to the Constitution, this is when they changed the Constitution. Congress can change the Constitution anytime they want in the United States, but this is an old amendment. It's from 1789, and it was signed into law in 1791. So it took, over a year, year and a half to get the first 10. Oh gosh, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to cut it short. I gotta go. I think I have the flu or something. I'll see you later. Thanks for stopping by. Talk more about this later.